afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're seeing this. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So, today I'm actually going to be presenting a simple book review of a book that I had the opportunity to read. It's called it's called The Power of Habits by Charles Duhigg. So, to start off, yeah. So, once again, my name is appearing over here, Vishnu Menon. So, as part of my MBA presentation for personalities and skill development, so this again is a casual video for my regular channel viewers, but for my degree, this is actually kind of important. So, moving on, this book is actually something that came across, although Mr. Mr. Manu Melvin Joy had recommended to review. I actually find this book quite interesting because most of the things that are mentioned are pretty relevant to what many people have and what have observed over the years. So now let's be here. Okay. So habits. Like what I noticed about the whole book is the entire concept of habits. So this simple five-letter word has many implications because many of our daily actions are like we think yeah we're doing this out of a necessity, but no, most of them are actually habits if you think about it. Like I would give a perfect example is for people who are into smoking. Yeah, I do condemn smoking, but for those who are into smoking, they have a tendency to you know actually take a cigarette break once or twice often. I have especially noticed this at my workplace previously, and I would say I've known a few people who had issues with this, but then again, it's a really hard habit to break through because the most common notion I've heard is the taste, the mental relief, and many other excuses and stuff that I've heard. So I would say most of these habits are born out of a cycle because that's what actually the book also states as well. Because we have a starting point, like if it's for any bad habits, we have the first try, and then we have the second try, and then it becomes a cycle because we have a cue, a trigger, and then it becomes a habit, and it cycles on. That's what my entire, the entire book actually, circles around this entire, notion. So most of the anecdotes that are also mentioned in the book as well. I have to give it to Mr. Charles Duhigg because there are a lot of anecdotes which he uses to convey his ideas, which I'm actually fairly impressed. So there are habits that are good and bad, and mostly, everyone doesn't want any bad habits because why? The three-letter word is always assumed to be something that we don't want. The four-letter word is what something that we always want. So these routines can be changed in multiple ways, by cutting off the previously shown either the cue or the trigger. But then again, it's not something that's easy, but that's something that we can always have to overcome. So that previous loop is also mentioned in the book as a habit loop. So the cure, then he mentions it more like a routine and then becomes a reward, which means you can say, like for example, if people who have the habit of let's say going to a simple vada shop. Okay, so for people who are a bit health conscious, they know that the oily vadas we eat in our stores, maybe probably not that good for your health, but then you can't resist the temptation for all those crispy vadas with soft interiors and those oily smell when you pass in the shop. So then again, that's the cue. The smell, the entire aroma, your hunger, which magically hits you right about 4 p.m. to 3 p.m., right after your lunch. And then the first time we do it, it becomes like, it triggers your dopamine, or maybe, triggers something in your head. Oh, yeah, this is good. So then again, it becomes a routine. So you go to the same water shop the next day, and the next day you consume one or two orders, maybe a few more, and then the satisfaction you get is the reward. It reinforces this entire habit. That's how the entire habit loop works. So, although I did explain this mostly with the vada pav, there are cases that I will mention in the book with Starbucks, training their NFL and NFL training methods. Starbucks usually had the habit of having employees usually, clock in, do a, not so wonderful routine of, checking their phones, not giving proper customer service. So these were the things that were noticed, and their training program emphasized on breaking these kinds of loops so that the staff actually pay focus to the customer and give them a better customer experience. They also had tracking of regular clients. So there are many people who are repeatedly visiting the place. Keep a track of their habits so that most of them we get an idea on what they are, intending to have. Maybe they have a usual order, or maybe something that you can always prepare. So building up that customer trust is always really good for a business. And then again, another example for most of the people is morning coffee. And the morning coffee or the morning tea, or maybe your, for people who are actually, of previous generation, some people in my generation as well, the morning newspaper some people need that smell of the morning newspaper, especially my grandfather, my father. They might not be reading the entire paper, but they just want that aroma of the morning newspaper to start off their day along with a cup of tea. So these habits, they can be good or bad, but then again, it's up to us to identify what is good and what is bad. Then harnessing keystone habits for lasting change. That's another aspect that was mentioned, because to manifest all these good habits, there are some keystone habits that are foundational to having more positive actions throughout the day, like our regular gym routine, which you always miss out, or your healthier snacking options, or snacking, not at all snacking late night. Forget those late night noodles, Maggie packets. But then again, when we manifest all these, tiny things as bad or unnecessary habits, we can build them up, and over time we could manifest and cultivate better habits, such as checking the simple mail, or maybe even uh, building up something for your retirement funds the long run. If you're working on to building our portfolio or a financial profile, those things, they don't happen overnight. These are regular step by step processes that require such good habits to you know, bring them up, and they take years of commitment. So that's where these habits can also be a powerful tool for us. So having a belief in a possibility, like there are cases where some habits might lead to stress, or maybe changes in our habits can also lead to stress, because so for some people, they can't resist the morning tea. They cannot resist that quick cigarette break they have during the lunch hours or post lunch. It triggers a mania in that inside the head. Sometimes I have noticed many people who try to get off of this addiction and fail and succeed. So having a positive belief that we want to overcome this, we have to overcome this, I can overcome this, you are already 50 percentage ahead of the curve. The rest is just simply doing the actions. The mentality is the first thing that's always helpful. There are also other methods for getting rid of our bad habits, like the Alcoholics Anonymous group that was mentioned in the book. Having a community to help you, having a few friends, having someone who you can relate to. They might not be someone who you might know on a daily basis. Maybe it might be a stranger, who knows? But opening your mind to people who are, you you know, victims of previous habits that you currently have, you can actually change your mindset and also the way you bring about things, bring about how you want to take up a challenge, and it will always be helpful. The collective belief is enough to move you forward. And another thing the book actually mentioned, so which is something I found really good, is the case studies shown in the book mostly were relatable anecdotes and many other marketing strategies and all of the routines that usually customers have and all the customer behavior that was studied. And there were also cases where I think a story that actually touched me was a mother from Iowa who actually had a gambling addiction. So she would actually go to the casino on a daily basis and leave the child at home, not caring for the child. So that became a bad habit, which led to the child developing a bad, you know, mindset and all, and it actually brings about a huge negative impact on the next generation who is supposed to be, supposed to take us forward. But then again, we don't give the right environment to help them cultivate good manners. So, and there's speaking of anecdotes, that's something a critique they have about this book. There are too many anecdotal stories for liking because yes, stories are really good. They give us a huge real world example, but when there's too many of them, we lose track on what the actual message becomes. Or maybe the repetitive ones with the same starting and ending, we tend to generalize all the stories. We take them like a grain of salt, just something that people who actually want to change mindsets might not find it relatable because every person is completely different. The entire book was really compelling because Power Habits actually a really well thought out and research book. That's something I have to commend Mr. Charles Duhigg because there are multiple aspects that he has covered. There are multiple points he touched upon on our daily lives. So for anyone who's interested in approaching business as a future or entrepreneurship, his book is a must read in my opinion because the topics he has mentioned have always been pretty much spot on what he wanted to communicate, and I would say it's actually a pretty good read because I was not actually that bored until all the anecdotes started cropping up. I was actually not that bored when I was reading the book because I'll be frank, I'm not much of a self-help or non-fiction book reader. So this was actually a pretty good experience, and I thank Mr. Manu sir for this opportunity because otherwise I don't think I would have actually touched upon this book. So yeah, in case I make any book reviews in the future, subscribe to this channel because this is a start, but I wish to, if ever the circumstances come by, I'll expand on this whole book review thing. And thank you all for being part of this journey. I think I'll call this the book series episode 1 for now. So, yeah, thank you.